Leadership and Yoga fam. Today I am interviewing my friend Eva, and she's a wonderful yoga instructor currently based in Italy. Before we get into this conversation that we have for you all today, I have a message from my sponsor, Offering Tree, which is an all in one platform for yoga instructors, for studio owners, and for coaches. And it's a place for you to build your website. They have an unlimited on demand library if you want to put your offers and classes up there. They have marketing and automations, booking and payments. They have all of that in one space. And so, if you're looking to get organized, you're looking to get started on really making your business make sense in the online world, check out the link in the show notes for Offering Tree. And you know that they offer a discount as well for Leadership and Yoga fam, plus a free trial if you just want to try all of that out with no strings attached. And the one other matter of business is if you were listening to this right now, I have an ask. If you would please take a moment to drop me a rating for my podcast. This really helps me out, y'all. It's the way that the momentum is built in the podcasting world is exactly through listeners like you. So if you're willing to also subscribe to my show and also to share this podcast with a friend, if you're interested in actually being on the podcast as well, I have a yoga teacher roundtable coming up. So I'll link that in the show notes as well. And you can actually join one of these episodes with a group of other yoga teachers if that is something that you're interested in. With that said, let's get into the episode. Eva Vriens, welcome into the Leadership and Yoga podcast. It's so exciting to have you here and to chat with you and to see you again. For those of you tuning in, actually, Eva and I met in Costa Rica earlier this year at my retreat and got to spend lots of time playing together, handstanding, hiking around and chatting and all of that. But Eva, I love your outlook on life. I love the way that you see the world. And I've continued to, chat with you about all of that. And it's exciting to me to always get to interview somebody that I know, on a more personal level, and also to get to know you even more today. So welcome to the Leadership and Yoga podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to talk and to share, to continue sharing some of the insights that we had together in Costa Rica and find maybe new
Yeah.
connections. And, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so if you're tuning in, really what you can expect in the episode today is that we're going to talk about teaching yoga. It's really kind of the foundation, and how this podcast started is to connect with other people who are really diving into the yoga world and who are teaching yoga, who are practicing yoga. And so, yeah, we're going to talk a lot about teaching yoga. We're also going to talk about life. And I feel like teaching yoga is one of the biggest learning experiences for me in terms of like learning things about myself and life. So we'll get into that for sure. But to start, Eva, will you tell folks just where you're at? Because you're in Italy, right?
I'm in Rome, in Italy.
And you
So
are
I am.
from,
I'm from the Netherlands originally. I moved to Italy quite like spontaneously without long-term plans 5 years ago in 2020. Did not plan to stay that long, but I'm still here. So yes, I guess that's gonna be a lot of the things that we tend to generally talk about is that did not necessarily
yeah,
plan out for it, but life happened to go in this direction.
yeah. And I understand too that you've been potentially finding a home that you're going to be living in long term. Is that still happening? All of that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like every time that there is a voice inside of me saying, okay, so maybe I need to travel a bit more, maybe I need to explore, maybe I want something new, then something happens that somehow connects me even more to this place. Who knows why? Maybe it's the universe wanting me to be here. So actually, yes, I was Planning on traveling some more like later this year, not to leave Italy, but just to spend some more time outside of Italy to keep enjoying Italy. But then some things changed and I couldn't travel, but that came also with the news of the invitation actually to move to a different place. I have a very nice house right now, but the new one will be even better with a beautiful garden where I'll be doing all of my gardening projects and vegetables and herbs and whatever I can come up with. So very exciting to
This
ground
sounds
myself even more and set my roots even more in Italy, I guess. Yeah,
I feel like the final form of humanity is us in a garden. Like I love that you're gonna have a garden so
absolutely.
much because it's just so magical.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nourishing in every part of our mind, our body, and our soul. That's so,
Yes.
so sweet. And so I've been seeing that you've been teaching yoga in Italian, or at least talking about
Yes.
yoga in Italian. Is that, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm teaching mostly in Italian. I sometimes teach in English, but mostly it's in Italian.
And when did you start learning Italian?
Only once I moved here. Again, I didn't plan to actually stay here. I had never thought before that Italy would be the country where I would be moving to. I mean, I've been on holiday in Italy, but I had never imagined living there. I was in Peru before 5 years ago in 2020. And that's where I found this like super strong connection to the earth and started to understand things that I couldn't really place yet. So I decided that I wanted to be there, or like not permanently, but at least that I wanted to go back there, to go back. I had to finish my thesis back in the Netherlands, and then my plan was to travel, to go back to Peru and to discover some more of what it is that I was going into. But then the
Yeah,
pandemic happened. So my moving to Italy was actually pretty much by chance because I realized that I couldn't travel with the pandemic going on. So I wanted to,
yeah,
well, if I had to work, at least find a job abroad. And as
yeah.
soon as I said, okay, so maybe I should find a job abroad, Italy came on my path. I got an offer here and I moved. And so I started to
That's
learn Italian here from the Spanish knowledge that I already had from having spent time in South America.
Wait, so how many languages do
Teaching,
you speak?
I speak Dutch, English, Italian, and Spanish.
Beautiful. I have so much admiration for teaching in other languages because everything that you want to just repeat out of habit, the things that you're comfortable saying in your native language or the language that you at least learn to teach yoga in, you cannot say anymore often. I found this at least when I have to teach in Spanish. It's like
Yeah,
all of
but
those
I
little
think
pieces.
absolute. Okay, that's true. But so the important thing to know is that I did my teacher training also in Italian.
Ah,
So
okay,
actually,
okay.
that still
That
makes
helps
it
so
very.
much.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, and it was also something that I was seriously considering. Like, can I do this? Because I wanted to do my teacher training, and I had the opportunity to do it here at the studio where I was already going for classes. But it would obviously be in Italian. And so I asked, okay, do you think I can do it? And you're like, yeah, no, your Italian is fine. But I mean, speaking Italian to, I don't know, go do your groceries is one thing, but speaking Italian to explain movements and anatomy is a completely different thing. So I will definitely the first, because it was like a 1 weekend a month, right? The YTT that I did. So the first weekend I felt very, I don't know, behind or thinking compared to my fellow students that I was lacking something. But then I realized that a lot of this conversation, a lot of this vocabulary, even in your native language, it's not that you have this already. I mean, how much, apart from people
Exactly.
who studied anatomy, how much anatomy do we
Yeah.
really know? And also, once you start
Yeah.
to explain, I don't know, the movement of an arm, like I probably wouldn't be able to do that properly in Dutch. I don't speak Dutch very often. I realized that also, like my fellow students who are native Italian speakers had difficulties like, explaining this. So it was more like me telling myself that I wasn't good enough rather than me actually not being able to say those things. But yeah, absolutely. Once I finished the YTT, I was used to teaching yoga in Italian because that's how I started. And so once I did my first class in English, I assumed because English for me does feel more comfortable speaking, so I assumed that it would be easy. And so I prepared the whole class, the whole flow, the team, and everything. And then once I started with the physical part and explaining the movement, I realized I have no idea how to say this in English either. So I think it's just something that you have to go through with every language, like probably also your own.
Yeah.
Also, although I don't have any experience with that in Dutch.
Well, I think that's what the most magical thing about that is it makes you more intentional with what it is that you're exactly saying because you realize, right,
Definitely,
that you have to learn these additional new words and that it
definitely.
is awkward for anybody to be explaining the movements as,
Yes.
they're seeing them and as they're demonstrating them. It's not something that is necessarily intuitive and as easy as speaking. So I can imagine though that you had a little bit of a double mental sweat of teaching that those first couple
Yeah,
classes of this
absolutely,
mental sweat of the
absolutely.
Italian.
But I remember, so I wasn't so worried about not knowing the words. I was more worried about people. Obviously, people can hear that I'm not a native Italian speaker, right? There, I have the accent, and I was worried that that would somehow be off-putting to people following my class. And then while I was still in my YTT, I was talking to to a yoga teacher actually, who, when she heard that I was doing my YTT, she told me, without me mentioning my uncertainty about Italian, she was like, "Oh, and I can already imagine how amazing it's going to be to listen to you as a teacher because you have that beautiful accent that's going to make you like tune into more what you're actually saying because there's something going on there." And she changed my perspective completely on that because then all of a sudden, like what I thought was my defect actually became something that could, for some people, work as something to keep them more intentionally present in the class. So yeah, I guess there's always a spin
That's
to everything.
that's so sweet that she was able to open your eyes to that perspective. And I wonder how many times we don't do things out of a fear of
Yeah.
some perceived defect or some perceived inefficiency that we have. And really, it would be that very thing that makes us more interesting and actually more effective at whatever it is that, we're trying to share. And I love this subject because this touches on the idea of leaning into the discomfort and into the newness. And you sent me something via DM when we were chatting that I literally copied down because I was like, this is it. You have distilled this so nicely. And you said, it's exactly what makes you nervous that will bring the change you desire. So while it still gives me anxiety now, I see it as a sign to fully lean into it and follow the path, to trust that one day it'll be less scary. And I want us to talk a little bit about why it's important. Why does everybody say, like, put yourself out there? You've got to face your shadows and there's gifts hidden there. Like, why?
Mhm.
We seem to understand that, but when it comes down to actually doing it, then we sometimes feel like we freeze up. We feel like we can't. But why
Yeah.
must we prevail? Why must we lean into the discomfort? Yeah.
I mean, there is so much. There is, and it's indeed, it's all in the shadows. So for me, a lot of this changed once I started to think about how, like, this reaction, this freezing or this feeling like nervous or anxious is like, it's a gut feeling, right? It's like you start to feel this knot in your stomach and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm afraid. I don't think I should do this. And then you freeze and then you stop and you stay where it's comfortable and nothing will change. But
Yeah.
I think, or for me, once I realized that all the feelings are there, the good ones, the bad ones, whatever you don't give space to, whatever you suppress because it doesn't fit in that moment, or people might disapprove, or it's not what you're supposed to do, it all goes in your gut, it all goes in your body. And it's this like whirlwind of emotions that are trying to communicate something to you. So it's both the butterflies, when we accept them and we welcome them and we think, yes, this is what we want to do, then we call them butterflies. But if we're nervous or anxious, then we call it a knot. But it's in the very same position. It's in the very same space. So I mean, for me, once I took that idea, I was able to lean into more exactly. So once I start to, it's not that every time I feel a knot, I'm like, okay, this is anxious, so I should go for it. No, of course. I mean, I doubt those intuitions as well. But once you realize that that could actually help you towards growth or towards getting somewhere new, and then that knot could actually become what you would start to describe as butterflies. That's, I think, where the growth lies.
Yeah. It's all in the gut. I love that we can discuss the gut as part of this because I am deeply, deeply fascinated. As somebody that I feel like for many years I kind of overpowered and ignored the gut
Yes,
entirely and like kind of
same,
made it go
same.
offline. And then when it comes back online, you're like, holy shit, there's a
Yes.
lot going on here, you know, a lot of feelings that I don't know if I'm capable of feeling all of
Yeah.
them. But yeah, the fear and the butterflies being in a very similar position in of like by nature the same energy in a lot of ways, but just um portrayed in different ways based on how you react to it is really interesting to me. It feels almost like the discussion of feeling that feeling within you and then choosing to act based on fear and like protecting
Yeah.
yourself and more like scarcity versus acting on love and on possibility and the idea that, well, even
On
if I go
trust.
for it and it doesn't work out, there's more where that came from. Yeah, I trust that
Yes.
in the future
Yeah.
I will have another shot.
Yeah. Without understanding its meaning, right? Because usually when it's anxiety, when it's shadow, it's something that we do not really know. Or at least for me, when I think about that, it's like I I feel like the change is there. I feel that there's a possibility there, but I cannot really put it into words. That's why it's a gut feeling. That's why it's anxiety, because I don't know what's on the other
Mhm.
side. I don't know exactly what direction I'm taking. So it's not something you do with the mind. It's something that you do from the feelings of the body, like the emotions are in your body. And so, yeah, it's trusting that, like one step at a time, this will start to unravel and become clear in the direction that it's going to take.
How do you get a sense for what is real, you know, danger, this is not for me. You know, that sense of like, wow, too much. Like I'm getting a gut feeling that is like, don't step there, right? Don't touch the hot stove versus
Yeah.
one where, okay, I'm getting a gut feeling that getting up on that stage really scares me. But you know you'll be okay. Like how do you I guess how do you differentiate between those two? Because this is something that I'm always thinking about because I think that sometimes easy is right, right? I think it is nice to pick the thing that calls to you, that is unfolding, right? You got the opportunity in Italy. It's like, well, let's go there. You know, that's good. But at a certain point, we must also face the discomfort and the intensity. So, yeah, how do you differentiate between intensity and discomfort that is for you and what is not for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, of course, I mean, it's always easiest to stay with. It's very easy to say, "Ah, things will just come on your path, and you should trust that you can follow it." And it's not always like that. It's you have to open up to the possibility, but at the same time, not think that everything that you should always just keep working for it and then you'll get there, or that you should push through it and then you'll get there. But again, I think it's usually your body itself that gives a very clear signal. So when I'm talking about this, like the knot in the stomach and the butterflies being the same thing, it's there's also moments where something just feels so wrong that you start to feel the tension everywhere. Like maybe the knot is
Yeah.
even in the stomach is even bigger, or I feel it in my shoulders, in my hands, like my mind blocks completely. And I mean, when you completely freeze, I think it's also a bodily response that you should also trust. In general, it's more about trusting that there's a lot that your body is telling you that your mind cannot really comprehend, right? So listen to
Yeah.
what comes from the body itself and trust the symptoms that it's giving you.
Yeah. It's interesting with we're trying to all the time solve problems from the analytical mind. We're trying to, think it through and I I catch myself all the time just problem solving just without even realizing it. And I agree, like, I feel like we must set all of that aside, at least for a moment,
Yeah.
and half the time we don't even know how to set it down at all. But yeah, if you can't set it down, it's like one of my favorite quotes of all times, it's a Einstein quote, and it's that a problem cannot be solved from the same level of consciousness or like from the same energy essentially that created it. You know, we must set down that analyzing of the problem. But yeah, I love that you're bringing the soundscape of Italy.
I was actually just muting myself to get rid of the the
No,
bells, but
I
okay,
love it.
you like it.
It's
Yeah.
great.
This
Yeah.
the church bells of Italy. Yes, they're they're here. The last part of the Einstein quote, I was missing it because I was trying to block the sounds of Italy that you apparently seem to love.
Yeah, just that, yeah, we must be able to essentially step out of the problem and step out of the analyzing of it within like a negative emotion of fear and to be able to really feel what's really going on. But I want to talk about this in context of teaching yoga and your journey to teaching yoga. But I always love to ask people, what did you say you wanted to be when you were little, if you had a childhood answer to that question?
Yeah, I was definitely not becoming a yoga teacher. I'd never imagined that I would become a yoga teacher. I guess that's not too surprising. No, I did have I actually had a very specific and also very ambitious idea in mind of what I wanted to be when I grew up. I when I was young, and we're talking like I was a child. I don't know, I was like 10 years old maybe, or a period between in the whole age range from like 10 to 15. I always said that I wanted to become the first female prime minister. Which is, I mean,
Wow.
I I really wanted to make a change, you know. I wanted things to be better. I wanted to make a change and have an impact in the world. And so yeah, I figured that I should become the prime minister and do that. Um yeah, somehow I was also very much like on the topic of it needs to be a woman. So I wanted to be the first female prime minister. But then I said, wait, but I'm still very young. So I mean, at the time I already said, if I'm not the first, it's probably better because I need to wait at least 20 years until I'm ready to become a prime minister. And 20 more years without a female prime minister is maybe too long. So I don't have to be necessarily the first as long as I become prime minister. That was my reasoning as a
I love
child.
that you
And
had that
yeah,
logic.
yeah. And sadly, there has still not
You
been a
had the
female prime
logic.
minister. So I was both
Oh my
in that
gosh.
logic state of mind, but also too optimistic.
Could it still be you? Could we still see you?
I don't think so. I still want to make a change and I still have so much to fight for, but I no longer believe that that's to politics that will happen. So yeah, I will not be the
You
first
can
female
teach
prime
yoga
minister.
to the prime minister.
That sounds like a very good
Or maybe
idea.
some meditation
Yeah.
to calm her.
Oh my gosh, I
Very
believe that
sweet.
so much. If you would just
Yeah,
make
teach.
all politicians like yoga practitioners, how much would we solve?
Yes. This was one of my early when I was first contemplating if I could make a change, because it's interesting that you say that about, you know, being a prime minister and stuff. I wanted to be in the State Department and I wanted to, you know, maybe be like an immigration attorney. I wanted to work in policy, on the policy side of things for
Yeah.
a long time. And when I was contemplating this change, I just had in my mind like, man, I don't know if I can do yoga because I want to do this and that. And then it hit me. I was like, well, my actual dream job would be teaching yoga or at least sharing these messages, maybe not like the physical class, but sharing these messages and these understandings that I was coming to that completely changed how reactive I was. It changed how I processed emotions, like we've been talking about with
Mm,
this awareness of what's going on in the body. Man, I would love to share that with people who are in politics or with people
absolutely.
who are in these positions of power in the
Absolutely.
world. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, that's still something
Take
that I
us
think about
to,
actually. Yeah. I mean, not necessarily with politicians, but it is, I mean, it's the reason why I ended up doing a YTT. So
yeah.
I didn't intend to become a yoga teacher at the time that I did my YTT. I just realized at the time that I was so confused both for things that were going on for me personally and for the state of the world, as I was, still trying to, not as a prime minister, but trying
Yeah.
to make the world a better place. And I
Yes.
realized that there was something about yoga that I didn't really understand. But whenever I got on the mat, all of that became smaller and all of that became easier
Mm.
to handle, right? So I was like, okay, I need to understand this magic. I need to know how to get there without going to a class. I need to be able to do this at home. Let me study that magic of yoga in more detail so that I can come back to myself and keep fighting for whatever I need to fight for in that moment. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, for me,
That's the key.
I still believe that it's also what I want to bring into my teaching somehow. Like all of those tools to help you to go back to yourself and to help you to present yourself again towards the outside world. I think that's the
Yeah.
key of what we want to do when we say we want to hold space for people. We want to
Yeah.
help people, give
Yeah.
people the tools. This is what we're talking about.
It is. And this is why I love finding this common ground with fellow yoga teachers who are dedicating really significant amounts of their life to this teaching, is that there's this common ground, this starting and this understanding of presence. What does it mean to be going into presence? It doesn't mean
Yeah.
that we're perfectly present all the time, but we know how to get back and to access it. Like you said, what is this magic? You found it. Well, how can I access that at home? And there's this, for me, it's almost like the reconnecting to the magic of life. And it feels like a luxury, but it's really not. It shouldn't be the luxury. It should be the starting point. It should be right there in the
Yeah.
beginning because everything that you do from that space is so different.
Yeah.
So I love that you describe it in that way. Yeah, that's really beautiful. Take us to the moment that you taught your very first yoga class. How was your experience teaching your first yoga class? Um, I love to ask this to people because I feel like it's such a wide range of experiences that we have for the first class. But how was your first class?
I was very the first class I was really nervous. So basically I started I had been during my YTT I'd already been teaching friends, like okay, we would either meet in a park or at my place and I would do my practice classes, but my first official class was in the very same studio where I did my YTT and in the very same studio
Nice.
where I used to practice as a student. So I was so used to putting my mat vertically, like among the other mats, entering the room, and all of a sudden I had to put it horizontally at the
Ah!
teacher spot. And I remember this moment. Like I entered I there was no class before mine, so I entered the studio. I think even 2 hours in advance because I was just like, okay, I need to sit on the mat and look at the place from this perspective. I need to familiarize myself with looking exactly from the other side because it just felt so weird because I knew the space so well, but always looking in the other direction. So, yeah, for me, it was mostly the fact that the place was both so familiar, which made it easier, but also because it was so familiar, it felt so strange to move roles around and start to be like someone else in that space.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it was very weird. And then I had prepared everything perfectly. Obviously, like the first time I sequenced, I had done that sequence like I don't know how many times to make sure that I wouldn't forget a thing. I have my
Me
theme
too.
all prepared and everything. And then I went through it, and it was way faster than what I thought, than what I prepared. Maybe because I was nervous, or maybe it's I don't know why. But I remember that I had like 20 minutes left, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna freestyle now. So yeah, that was my first experience. I was like, okay, I don't know how to fill this because my sequence is finished. I don't know what to do. But it was great. I loved it immediately
That's
the first
crazy.
time.
Yeah.
Like it was weird and I was nervous at the start, but that moment when throughout the class you perceive how the energy changes, right? And how
Mm.
everyone comes in with all these different energies from the day. I teach at night, so it's usually like the chaos and the stress from the city life and the job and whatever, and you don't know what's going on in people's life. But slowly you start to feel that this is sort of like sinking and getting together and calming down. And throughout Shavasana, you have this like calmed. And then when you bring them back in the
Yeah.
end, when they open their eyes, and there is this moment where it's still quiet and people do not talk yet. I mean, in my very first class, this was the moment where I was like, I need to do more of this. I need to. And I still
Yeah.
have that. This is still the magical moment in each class, the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Experiencing people having their moment of pause, their
Yes.
moment of presence in the day that might
Yes.
otherwise not be there at all, which is crazy. Yeah. What do you feel like since that first class? I love that, by the way, that discussion of positioning yourself where the teacher is. And I think that these are so valuable. These are so many things that I would have loved to have heard before teaching my first class. Sincerely, like it's just so good to think about these things
Yeah.
and I love that you got there so early like that to ground into the space. And that's honestly my go-to as well. If I'm able to and it's a new space, I love to go early. Not even anymore to rehearse anything, but literally
Just to be
to just
there.
be there
Yeah.
and to chill out for a moment. Yeah. But what have you learned about teaching since then? And I know this is an incredibly broad question, but I'm just kind of looking for breakthroughs in understanding of how you want to teach yoga. You know, what works? What doesn't work in your opinion?
I would say that for me, what I like to do, what I always try to do in my classes, and I don't always have the time or the inspiration or the energy for it. But what I always try to do is to really connect the whole class to a team. Because I feel like
Mm,
this is for me what makes the class complete. It's you can have a very good class with just going through asanas and breathwork, pranayama, and have your meditation. It can be a full class already, but if you are able to link it to a team and not just introduce a team to the beginning, but somehow also relate the movements to that team and get people to reflect, give them some points for reflection that either throughout the practice or later in the next days can maybe give them some inspiration or something to think about. I think that's what helps, or at least that's what I try to do in helping people understand why yoga makes them feel what they're feeling, right? So if you do your YTT, all of a sudden you
yeah.
learn so much more. And very often in classes, of course, we cannot go in depth about what it all means and what's behind it and what is yoga philosophy and what do certain
Yeah.
positions evoke for you. But there is still a way to help people realize that they feel certain things throughout the practice or that their feelings change throughout the practice. So I usually try, and it can be something, sometimes it's really related to yoga philosophy, sometimes it's related to something completely different. My inspiration comes from everywhere. Like some time ago, for instance, I had lost one of my AirPods walking home. And so I had to turn around, walk back, and look for the AirPod based on what the find your phone position says where it should be. So I was very annoyed because I was already in a rush and I had to teach that night. And it's like, okay, this is not the moment. Everything is, why I need this. I have to look for it. And while I was looking back, thinking I have to rewalk that entire bit, all of a sudden I had this thought. I was like, but it's not walking back. It's not walking exactly the same path. What I'm actually doing is looking in a completely different way to the same place where I was already walking, obviously, literally, because I was looking at the ground to try to find my AirPod. But it got me into this flow of inspiration where I was like, it's the same as when you're in the mountains and you walk back and the view is entirely different. And it's the same as what we do in life. We're always telling ourselves to keep moving forward, to make change, to make steps, to grow. But sometimes we need to take a few steps back. Sometimes we need to retrace our steps. And that's not to go back. That's not to stagnate or to be worse, but actually to get new insights, new clarities. So this was then the theme that I introduced
Mhm.
to the class, right? As a theme of the class, like, okay, retracing
Mm.
steps to help us going forwards. And what I did was making every sequence We would do it in one way, and then we would do it exactly entirely reversed so that they would feel the effects on their body, right? And then slowly they could go into how they would feel that also in their minds. Like if you do your sun salutation exactly in the reverse, it's
Wow.
completely different. So it's not going backwards, it's not stagnating,
Yeah.
it's completely new insights and perspectives. So yeah, that's usually
Huh.
how I try to find ways to integrate
Yeah.
a thought. It can be poetry, it can be something from a yoga sutra, it can be something that happened to me in my day, but I try to find a way to integrate that into my classes to get them to think about that a little bit.
This is so inspiring. I love that so much. I've never heard anybody answer that question quite like that. And especially not the, retracing your steps and then integrating that into the theme. That's so cool. That's such a good idea. Um, that's really, really, really wonderful. I want to know how. So this is you've kind of shared a bit about how you create the theme and the intention for the class, but how do you prepare yourself to teach and lead in the moment? And I'm always curious to hear from people if you're a rituals person or if you're a spontaneous person where it doesn't matter what you do beforehand. You know, some people are superstitious, right? They're like, I always do
Mm-mm.
exactly this one thing, even if nothing else. But yeah, how do you prepare yourself to lead or to teach?
I would say more spontaneous than ritual, but I do think it's always very, and I'm no longer there 2 hours before, also because sometimes my teaching hours wouldn't even allow for it because there was another class before, but also
We've
because
got some stuff to do. Yeah.
exactly there are other things, but still I always try to take some time. And if I have a lot of time, amazing, I will do my own personal practice so that I can really fully ground before teaching. But even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes, I will always make sure that I will do something, whether it's some movement, meditation, breath work, lighting some incense, whatever it is, to already get to the right space of mind to then welcome other people into the space. So I might not be in the
Yeah.
space where I'm going to teach, but I need to make sure that once I step into the space, at least I'm already there, because everyone else is just going to come in and will need the class to get there. But if I already, bring my chaotic energy of the day into it, then it becomes very difficult to do that. So the one thing that I will
Yes.
always try to do in whatever way possible is to find a moment to ground myself and to calm myself, and yeah, to be ready to create and hold space for others. No, my mornings are, so it's not always the same, but my mornings are important. So there I'm a bit more like, okay, it doesn't matter how early I have to get up, or it doesn't matter what else I have to do afterwards, but in the morning I need to have that one moment just for me. And I'm not the morning practice person. I usually practice later in the day. So in the morning I'll maybe do some like shaking and light stretches to wake up, maybe some, but I will not do a full practice because I don't really feel the strength in my body at that moment. But I will take a moment for myself. Some small movements, and then my breakfast is holy. I'm not someone who skips breakfast, because it's not about the food itself, but it's about the moment around it. Like that moment where I'm not reading anything, I'm not checking my
Mm.
phone, I'm not yet thinking about what I have to do that day, but it's just me in the moment, giving that space to myself before I'm continuing. Yeah.
That is something that this past year, I feel like, again, that I had not thought or paid much attention to. I don't have a TV, so I wasn't watching TV while eating, but I would find myself like maybe listening to a podcast or listening to something, and it depends on the context of what I'm listening to,
Yeah.
but sometimes it ends up just sucking you right in, and you don't even realize, and you're like, oh, my bowl is empty now, and it was like I already ate it all. Oh, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. Yeah.
And it's funny because it's like how much the mind looks to continue to look outwards of just instead of like the beautiful gift that is literally the food sustaining your life that's in front of you. And
Yeah.
now I sit and we have a big map up behind the table, and I find myself like memorizing the location of different countries. And then I'm like, stop that. Stop. Just enjoy
Stop,
your food.
slow
You don't
down.
need to
Yeah.
memorize where the countries are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that's again, I feel like presence is the answer 99% of the
Absolutely.
time with all of
Absolutely.
these things.
Yeah. And
Mm,
I mean, with other meals, I'm not that good at it because then you're already into your day and maybe you're eating with other people. But it's the breakfast
yeah.
where I'm really like, okay, this is where I'm going to be present about what it is that I mean, not that I'm just consciously thinking about every bite, but it's rather to not think so much, but just be present and just, yeah, be mindful about what you're doing in that moment.
Mhm.
And at least start the day with
Yeah,
like proper digestion and everything because your body is in control before you continue.
absolutely. Yeah, I it's interesting to me once I love that our conversation has included more about the gut and
Yeah.
food and all of this than I originally intended, but it's for me, I've noticed this where I think that I'm in a bad mood, but then I realize, like, no, actually, my stomach is upset because I've been rushing around or I ate quickly. And now I feel like I can't take a full deep breath in. So now my breath
Yeah.
is really shallow and short, and it's making me breathe like as if I was anxious. And now I am literally feeling anxious.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
happen to you before?
Absolutely. I can only
Yeah.
agree with this. Yeah, it so often comes back down to that. Yeah.
I want us to shift gears into a little bit of discussion about our everything that we're experiencing, our reality and our synchronicities and things like this, because this has been a subject that I've really loved hearing from folks on. And it's just your thoughts on um how our reality comes to be, like, do you believe in manifestation? Is it more of like fate versus free will, right? Like what do you think is, and this gets us into the weeds, I know, but how do you think that we're creating our realities, or do you think that we are?
I do think we are. Um, I mean, it's not that simple that we can create any reality that we want. Of
Yeah.
course, we are all born into specific context with si- privileges or
Yes.
not. There is a whole range of inequalities and restrictions that will have a role in how much we can do. But I do really believe that within a given context, we can make our own reality to some extent. So it's so much about the
How
story you tell yourself, right? If if you tell yourself
Yeah.
the positive story of being able to do it, I mean, I guess I'll come back to the body again, but this is what your body will listen to. And this is maybe when that what I was talking before about this gut feeling, can you follow it or not? Like once you start to create a positive story of not necessarily where you want to end up, but what you want to believe is possible somehow, then science will come on your path. Like step by step, you will go in that direction. If you already start with okay, but
Hmm.
that's nice, but that's not gonna happen to me in my life. Well, then it's very unlikely to happen to you in your life because you're not open to the possibilities.
And this is the key point. And so I'll ask one further question here. How do you think that we can start to believe something different is possible for us? You know, how can we actually start to really believe it? Is it just by trying to experience it little pieces? Is it by books? Is it by practice? Like, what is it, you know?
It's definitely all of that. It's a mix of all of that together, right? Because you need to maybe also be inspired by others. So books and practice and talking to other
Mhm.
people definitely help you understand that this can happen. mostly it's about really, really, really deeply listening to your inner self. And what is it that calls you? What is it that really makes you happy? What is it that you see for yourself as your purpose? And it might not be something that you can already do tomorrow. But what are very small things you could do that relate to that? So that slowly you start
Mhm.
to like pave the way for possibilities. Start to say like start
Mhm.
to voice this idea, to vocalize it. Because as soon as you start to say it, you might meet people or there might be something coming on your path. And all of a sudden it's like, I was just thinking about that the other day, or I just told
Yeah.
someone about that the other day, and now you're here in front of me, or now I'm hearing about this opportunity. And once you start voicing it, I think the first signs are gonna come on your path. It's not that simple. It's not like, okay, you just have to say it and tomorrow it will happen. But if you consistently live with the idea that it can happen, more and more will.
Yeah, it takes root. Yeah, it
Yes.
takes root. I like that answer. If you had a book or two that you could recommend that has really impacted you, and it doesn't have to be related to this subject specifically, but do you have a book that you would love to recommend to people, or you do commonly recommend to people?
I I mean, I read many books, so I love giving book recommendations. But I think the one
Yeah.
book, especially talking to you, is going to be the one book that we already talked about in Costa Rica, because it was actually a book that I was reading when I was in Costa Rica. And I remember that we had this conversation like by the pool after the morning
Yeah.
class.
Yes.
Um, we were talking about books that change your perspective, and I was reading a book by Kenneth Meadows. It's Earth Medicine, and
Mhm.
it really there's something about, so basically in this book he describes the way Native Americans live with the earth and get their knowledge from the earth. And there is something in that book that really, really, really resonates with me as a way of life. It actually relates to, I mean, a lot of these more indigenous knowledge and outlooks on life are actually very similar. If you look at how they connect to the earth and how they see the elements, it's very similar to Ayurveda. It's very
Mhm.
similar to traditional Chinese medicine, which gives it even more power because it's all in very different parts of the world. Like they came to the same connections and the same
Yeah.
ideas. Why? Because they connected to the earth. They were still living in harmony to the earth. And there is something, and he describes, so this author describes this in a way um, where it's like, so you notice the quote, so within, so from within, so without, so above,
Yes.
what is it again? I know it like,
As above, so yeah, as within, so without, as above, so below.
yeah, yeah, from within, so without, as above, so below. And
Maybe it's the inverse. I feel like it goes either way. But
no,
yes.
it's as within, so without, as above, so below. As the universe, so the soul. That will be the complete one. But basically, the author uses this quote to explain earth medicine by saying, compared to astrology, where people look outside of themselves. They look outside even of the earth, right? As above, so below. They start to look at the stars, at the planets for cues
Mhm.
about who they are, what's going to happen. And by doing so, they are placing everything externally to themselves. It's all above, written
Mm.
in the stars, in the planets, and it's not you, right? Whereas earth medicine, or any
Mm.
way that we live in connection with the earth, is as within, so without. We humans are part of the earth. Humans, the animals, the plants, the minerals, they are all part of us and we are part of them. So if you start to take your wisdom from your connection to the earth and the elements, but what I took from this book is this is also taking your responsibility for what you're doing. It's not just looking
Yeah.
as above, so below. It's taking your responsibility for being a part of this entire ecosystem and being a part of this world and the people
Yes.
and the animals and everything that's within it. So, yes, you can still understand a lot about yourself by knowing, I don't know, which dosha is dominant, and it can help you go through life. But you also need to live from the as within, so without perspective. You have a role in this, you are part of this
Mhm.
whole universe, of this earth. And
Yeah.
if you want to make a change, you have to start with yourself. That's not something he says in the book, but
That
that's really the
resonates.
message that I got the whole time reading it.
Mhm. That resonates so much. And this this theme of, yes, we cannot be separated from nature. We are a part of nature. I feel like we have sort of a nature, you know, we feel that we are cut off, or we feel that we are separate, and that can never be so. Um, and there is a great amount of responsibility that comes when you accept yourself as part of it, not separate from it. Let's transition to leadership here. And I think that we've touched already on this subject in many different ways indirectly, but in your opinion, what makes a good leader? What are qualities of an exceptional leader?
I think an exceptional leader is able to hold space. It comes back to that. So exceptional leader holds the space for other people to be and to act in their fullest potential. It's about um, being there, but also giving the trust to others. It's not about what you
Mhm.
should. Of course, it's also about what you should do, but it's mostly about what you allow others to do. I think the
Mm,
space you give them
mhm.
to give their share.
Yeah. If you could have a coffee chat or a little tea chat, a little chat like we've just had right now with anybody in the world, who would you want to sit with and pick their brain?
So I always feel a bit uncomfortable with that question. It might be because of my research background. I also um, have a background in research. Maybe it's my analytical brain, but I always feel like I could never just pick one person because it would be incomplete. I am inspired by
Yeah,
so many people and by so
of
many
course.
things, but I would never go for one person and pick their brain entirely
You
and
can, okay, let's
integrate it
just
into
a
mine.
couple.
It's like what I would love to do is have like so many
Yes,
people and get bits
a
and pieces
panel.
of knowledge of everyone and then integrate it until
Mhm.
something even better comes out.
That's very important. I'm gonna reframe you've changed my question. It's never gonna be that again. It's gonna be who's your panel? Can you give us maybe a sampling of who might be people that you would like to invite to your
Right.
coffee
Okay. Yes. I'm
extravaganza?
gonna I'm gonna do a panel now. Okay, I think, and I'm gonna relate this again to some of the topics that we've been discussing so far, because I really do believe that there is something to integrate here. It so for me, yoga is very big, and there's a lot that relates to yoga,
Mhm,
and yoga can be applied to a lot of things. So to understand more also within our yoga practice about that shadow element, right? That what we started talking about in the beginning,
mhm.
that the the knot in your gut and stepping into your shadow or following the fears. I would probably invite Carl Jung to my coffee table, the the
Mm.
psychologist, because I mean he talks a lot
Yes.
about the shadow. So he would definitely have a lot of insights that I would love to learn more from, and I would have 1,000 questions to ask. Then I would also invite people, and I don't have a specific name here, but I would invite someone at the table who is a herbalist, someone with the knowledge of plant medicine.
Mhm.
And exactly that, an understanding of the gut mind connection, the body mind connection, uh, how we
Yeah.
can give space to that through herbs or through our foods or to plants or in general listen to that. So definitely a herbalist at my table. And finally, I would probably invite, now there is no name directly coming to my mind. I mean, there are many names, but not a specific person. But there are many people, luckily, a growing community of people within the yoga community that are really making a call for yoga and social justice. And I think that is something very important that we
Mhm.
also uh, need to create space for, to um, not only talk
Yeah.
about yoga for inner work and working on yourself and making
Yeah.
yourself better, but also yoga and how it was always intended to be, to stand up against oppression and injustice and violence, and do that also today in the current world that we're living in.
Yeah.
So I think all of those elements together
Mhm.
would create, that's at least the direction that I want to take with all of this together. I do really believe that there is something to connect here by working towards that social change. To do that, we need to understand the shadow work, and we need to understand how to step out of it and hold space for each other.
Absolutely. That was a very complete response. I love that. And the very final question of the interview is the billboard question, which is
Yes.
if you had a billboard that was going to be seen by everybody in the world, what would you want to put on it? What would you share?
Yeah. I remember that we did this also at the end of the retreat. Um, it was actually very
Mhm.
cool. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but because at the end of the retreat, you asked all of us to write a billboard message and then to pick anonymously
Yes.
a message of someone else, and you would never know who wrote that message unless you would like go ask everyone, but I didn't. As I said before, I was reading this book about earth medicine and from within so without. The message that I picked that someone wrote was from within so without. I had goosebumps all over. I was like,
Whoa.
okay, yes, I need to keep going on this path from within so without. I don't know who told me this, but yes,
Wow.
this is the path I'm going to follow. So yeah, that's not my
I
billboard
didn't
message
write
because it
that
was
one.
given
I had no
by
idea.
someone
Yeah.
else. But the billboard message that I wrote down at the
Yeah.
time, I think I would still repeat it right now. And my billboard message was, dream as big as you can, say all your dreams out loud, and believe that they can become a reality. And the idea behind it was that so
Mm.
often we talk about dreams, just like we were saying before, like, can you make your own reality? Very often it's like, oh, I wish I could do that. But I wish I could do that is not going to realize it. If only I could do that. That's a dream, but then it stays a dream. If you start to say, like, I
Yeah.
want to actually get to that dream, I want to believe that this can be true, then I do really think that it can become a reality. So yeah, that's my billboard message.
Yeah. That is so aligned with what I am also always preaching on here. And so thank you for that, for sharing that message and for sharing that story as well about how somebody else's billboard message that they wrote And yeah, we
so
mixed them all up in a big pile in the
yeah,
shala on the floor and grabbed one. It's really cool that, yeah, you ended up with that one out of, I don't know, there were like 20 something of us
yeah.
there. So
I mean, it's
it
already crazy that
it
someone
was
wrote it down to
definitely,
begin with, and then that it found me.
yeah,
It was like it was a sign to keep following that
yeah, that
intuition.
makes me
Which
smile
is
really
glad.
big.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you so much, Ava. This was phenomenal to get to talk to you, and I'm super happy to have met you and cross paths with you. I feel
Same.
similarly like it's amazing that you're out there, and it's even more amazing that, you know, you came to the retreat and to hang out with us. It feels like picking that billboard message out of the bunch of them. So let folks know where they can find you. And yeah, if you have any upcoming projects and things that you want to share about that you're excited about, let us know and I will link it all in the show notes, of course.
Okay, so I'm on Instagram, and my handle is Eva EVA .VRI, so the first letters of my last name. Um, all upcoming events. I have some ideas in mind about English events. All upcoming ones are Italian, so this is going to be for any Italian speaking person that might be
For the
around
Italian
in
speakers.
Italy. Exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
currently I'm very excited. I'm currently working on together with some other people on setting up a series of meetings of like, let's call it sharing circles, where we are going to use yoga and other regenerative tools to create a space for collective care and creating the space together to work through whatever it is that we need to work through. So yeah, I'll
Mm.
be giving more information about that soon for sure.
Well, keep doing all of the good work, and I hope to see you in Italy or elsewhere in the world.
So
And
do
if you are
I.
listening,
I'm
thank you for making
manifesting
it all
back
the
in
way to
Costa
the end
Rica.
of the episode. Yes, yes. Yeah, we'll catch you next time. Ciao, ciao.
Thank